So thank you so much for taking time out for this talk. So this particular study or paper is actually a part of my dissertation, PhD dissertation that I have recently submitted. And as you can see, the title is about we'll be discussing about confidence in state governments and rural local governments. So let me just first quote few excerpts. Let me just first quote few excerpts from an article written by one of the most eminent economists of our times, Dr. Kaushik Basu. So societies where people are honest and trustworthy are likely to grow faster. He further writes that individual self-interest is an important driver of economic growth and efficiency, but it is by no means sufficient. Success of an economy depends on many other traits like honesty, compassion, and the urge to reciprocate. Further, he also quotes Arrow and Debrew 1978 paper, where he says that the model of laissez-faire world of total self-interest would not even survive for 10 minutes if we do not have a society that is based on trust and mutual cooperation. So with this premise, what I am doing in this paper, I am exploring this topic of trust per se. So we have two types of trust. One is societal trust. Societal trust is the trust that you share amongst yourselves as fellow citizens of a country, that you share amongst yourself as by the very virtue of being the members of a society. And on the other hand, we have institutional trust. The institutional trust is about placing faith and trust or confidence in institutions. The institutions can be of different types. For instance, we have financial institutions like banks, where we place trust on them that they will guard our money well, they will take care of our interest well. Similarly, we have other institutions like political institutions. So what do political institutions do? Political institutions aim at providing public good services to the masses. They aim at providing law and order solution to the masses, and basically to restore a good, healthy environment for everyone to live and grow. So that is what I am going to study in this paper. I'll be studying institutional trust, and more particularly, I'll be studying trust in political institutions in this particular paper. So the two institutions I'll be looking at in this paper are the institutions of rural local governments and state governments, as my title has clearly indicated. So to first give you a background about these institutions, we have village councils, also known as panchayats, right? So these panchayats were always there from the very beginning of our independence, right? So the moment we got independence, we had these panchayats in place. However, they were not legitimate per se. I mean, some states used to have them, many states never had them. So there was a complete state, it was more of a state subject. Those states who wanted to have a panchayat, they had a panchayat. Those who never wanted to have a panchayat, they didn't maintain a panchayat council. However, with the constitutional legitimacy that these institutions were provided, the institution of panchayat, as per the 73rd Amendment in Indian Constitution in 1992, every state was now required to have panchayat samitis. So these panchayat samitis, also called as your gram panchayats. So the amendment mandated the governments to conduct elections every 5 years in order to elect representatives at the rural local level. And these panchayats are primarily responsible for administration of local public goods and implementation of state and central level schemes. So like MG Narega and TPDS, Targeted Public Distribution System, all these things, while have been enacted or have been executed, implemented or introduced by your central government, they are executed at the ground level with the help of these panchayats. So that's their role, to implement the policies that have been formulated by state and central governments. And Additionally, these panchayats also brings in with them a mass of new political leaders, and which can have revolutionary consequences for Indian politics, as has been quoted by World Bank. On the other hand, we have state government. So the role of state government is not only does it provide a crucial paradigm under which panchayats operate. So as per the constitutional amendment, every state is now mandated to have these panchayats. So their job is to provide this paradigm. Their job is to provide power and resources to these panchayats so that they can work efficiently, and also to design and implement panchayat level reforms. Because these are the tasks of states, there exist huge interstate variations in which these panchayats are functions, or they are being evolved over time because of this particular interstate variation, and because of this very fact that states are solely responsible on how these panchayats shape up. So other than that, there are basic roles of state government that they are supposed to perform, which is to provide law and order to the society, to help farmers, and to manage water resources and all sorts of things. So therefore, what we see that state is providing a paradigm for the local government. The local government, on the other hand, is responsible for the execution of state government schemes. So there exists a huge interlinkage between these two particular political institutions, which is basically coming from the fact that we had decentralization introduced in India somewhere in 1990s. So therefore, satisfaction from and effectiveness of these institutions can be reflected in the level of confidence that public places in them. So if you are more satisfied by the performance of these institutions as a citizen of the country, you would place more confidence in these political institutions. If you're not satisfied, you would be less confident about their working. So that's the basic idea, and this idea has been discussed widely in literature and more in political science literature. And on the basis of this idea, there exist primarily two theories of political trust. One is a cultural theory, which says that trust in political institutions is more exogenous. What do you mean by exogenous? It means that it doesn't come from the system itself. It is something that is coming from outside the system, right? Exogenous. So it basically thrives on the fact that whatever is the cultural background of that society, that would have huge implications on the level of trust they would place on different institutions amongst themselves. So that's one theory, so which says that it is exogenous, coming from such certain cultural background. The other theory is the institutional theory. It says that no, it doesn't come from outside. It is dependent on what is happening within the system. It thrives on the fact if your institutions are working well, you will place more trust on them. So it is very much innate, and it is very much imbibed in the system in which via which your society works, and therefore it is very much dependent on your society per se. So hence that's the theory of your institutional theory of trust. So there exists wide literature that has talked about political trust. So there have been researchers that have discussed about the determinants of confidence in political institutions, but many of them have not really distinguished between the political institutions that are operating at different levels of the hierarchy, like state government, central government, rural local government, or your municipalities and stuff. So they haven't really distinguished between these different types of institutions, but they have nevertheless studied the factors that are responsible for placing trust in these institutions. Then there are some studies of late that have actually made that distinction and have analyzed trust at different, by taking into account different institutions and working at the different levels of the hierarchy. There are certain Indian studies that have analyzed this concept too, but however, none of the studies so far have explored the synergies between confidence in different levels of government, how these different levels of government are really interacting amongst themselves. So that's where this paper contributes. We, in this paper, estimate the synergies between level of confidence in state government and rural local government, also known as panchayats, of the household. And we further examine if what other factors are important in determining level of confidence in state and rural local government, whether these are the household level factors, village specific factors, these are your MLA specific factors or Pradhan specific factors. So that's the other angle we are trying to delve into. So the data for this particular study comes from India Human Development Survey 2011 round, which is the second round. And the survey is conducted by University of Maryland in collaboration with National Council of Applied Economic Research in India. The unit of analysis that we are exploiting in this particular study is a household unit. And the focus of our study is primarily rural India, because we are talking about rural local government. So hence the analysis has to be about around rural India. The number of observations we are particularly working with are roughly 27,347 observations. So fine. So the next question that comes is, so what is this survey really asking about when they are positing questions about confidence in political institutions? So this is exactly the question they ask. They ask, as far as the people running these institutions are concerned, what would you say you have? A great deal of confidence, only some confidence, and hardly any confidence at all in village panchayats and nagarpalikas to implement public projects? So this particular question is aimed at rural local government. Then further, they also ask whether about state government to look after their people. So for the state government, it's a more holistic question that they're asking, while in case of rural local government, they're asking more specific in per se question per se, which is about implementations of public policies. So with this question, when we delve into the into data deeper, and so we come out with certain descriptive statistics that gives us a very crude idea of what is happening in case of India. So just looking at these bar graphs, we see that most of the people are actually skeptical about the performance of these institutions. So with a very high probability proportion of people having only some confidence, right, the middle bar, for both the institutions, the panchayats as well as the state government. While we see there is the second highest proportion is of those who have a great deal of confidence in them. So there is roughly 30% of 30% of population that says that they have a very high confidence in these institutions, and the least of them is the ones who say that they have hardly any confidence in either of these institutions. So with a very high level of skepticism followed by some optimism and then the cynicism. So when we look at the level of confidence in panchayats on the basis of caste categories, what we see is that Muslim forward and Muslim OBC caste categories have the least level of confidence in panchayats. While interestingly, those who have the highest level of confidence are your SCs, STs and others. So they have roughly more than 30%, 30% of our sample who are from SC, ST categories or other categories, they place a very high level of confidence in these institutions, particularly panchayat. While in case of Muslim forwards and Muslim OBCs, we see a very lesser percentage, actually the minimum of all the subcategories we have here, places confidence in panchayat. The picture is very similar when we look at these different subcategories for state government. So again, we see the Muslim forward and Muslim OBCs have very less hope with these institutions or with the institution of state government, while again we have a very the SCs and STs and other caste categories are particularly more optimistic about these institutions. So further, because we also want to see if there are synergies in these two institutions, we also did a two-way bar graph. And we, as you can see, hopefully you can see it, that roughly 57% of households who say that they have great deal of confidence in panchayat also believe that they have a great deal of confidence in state governments. And similarly, 43% of my households who had hardly any confidence in panchayats have hardly any confidence in state government too. So they are more aligned, they are moving in tandem. a Pearson chi-square test statistic that is normally used for exploring correlations between ordered variables that we have here, says that the correlation is positive and statistically significant between these two terms. But what happens now is when we run a simple model, so because my dependent variable is ordered, why? Because I am rating my confidence in these institutions. A very high confidence means a rating of 1, no confidence means a rating of -1, and when I'm not sure, the rating goes to 0. So right, so it's an ordered categorical variable in descending order of confidence, right? So because it's an ordered categorical variable, I ran an ordered logit model here, and a simple ordered logit model says that there is a significant positive association between both my dependent variables, which are confidence in panchayat and state government. So there is a two-way causation we can say, so which we also call as reverse causality or feedback effect in economics. So because of this feedback effect, because of this very fact that not only my confidence in state government is influencing my confidence in rural local government, but my confidence in rural local government is also influencing my confidence in my state government. So because this is a back and forth relationship, a back and forth relationship, I'm sorry if you're really not interested, please, yeah, I get really distracted, you're sitting right in front. So because of this very simultaneity of my problem, it gives rise to endogeneity issue. So this is primarily your endogeneity issue, right? So the solution to this problem is to have a simultaneous equation model. And when I run a simultaneous equation model, these are the two structural equations I'm looking at. So I am running my confidence in state government on not only on my confidence in panchayat, but also a host of factors that comes from the household, a host of factors that comes from a village, a host of factors that comes from an MLA. And when I run the other equation, that is when I estimate my confidence in panchayat, it is not only dependent on my confidence in state government, but also a host of factors that are governed by household specific factors, your village specific factors, and your pradhan specific factors. So when I run this setting, these structural equations together, when I estimate them together, I get this. So it's a huge table, but right now I'm just highlighting the one part that is most important to my study, which is this particular table. So what we see here is that now it is only my confidence in panchayat that is affecting my confidence in state government, and the confidence in state government no more really affects my confidence in panchayat. So the causation is actually moving from panchayats to state government. So what does it mean? It means that whatever is happening at the ground level, right? Because being a citizen of this country, and given that my focus is on rural India, so being a citizen of this country, my interaction actually happens from the institutions that works at the most local level, right? So if I believe that that particular institution is actually doing its job well, and they are providing the public goods well, and they are efficient in their working, then not only do I have better confidence in those institutions, but it also makes me positive about the institutions that are working at subnational level, right? So it makes me positive about the fact that the state government, or probably because I didn't have data on national government, probably the interlinkage works further too, that my confidence in panchayats also affects my confidence in national government too. But that is something that is open to debate because I didn't have data, so I couldn't test it. However, for the subnational government, yes, it does work like that. So that means my interaction with the local level government has a huge bearing on not only my perceptions about of panchayats, but also about my perceptions of how state governments work. Right, so this is the major finding. So the causation works from local government to subnational government and not the other way around. And there are studies that have talked about these things earlier, but none of them, as I said, had actually inferred any synergistic possibilities. And this is, our study is one of the first that have actually talked about the synergistic possibilities and have been able to uh, uh, highlight some important and interesting results here. Besides, there are other factors that are also important for your confidence. Yeah. Uh, so the household specific factors include your wealth quartiles. It includes the highest level of education in a household. It includes your whether the house was a pakka house. So basically to gauge their well-being, level of well-being. Then we had village specific factors about whether the village from which the household belongs had a road or not, whether they had electricity or not, and MG Narega, if there's a good, if the scheme of MG Narega has been implemented well. So this the MG Narega I just did included in order to proxy for all the possible public policy schemes that could have been working on ground. In case of MLA characteristics, we had caste. I have control for the caste and religion of the candidate, and I have control for state level fixed effects.
And the state level?
I'm sorry?
And what about for the model in this, which you have
For the panchayats?
Yeah, sorry, for the panchayats, you have control for state level.
Yeah, both the equations, for both the equations, I have control for state level fixed effects. Right? Okay, so the other important factors that play an important role in determining my confidence in these institutions, one of them is wealth. So it says, my study finds that household belonging to a higher wealth quartile have significantly lower confidence in state government as against those who belong to the lowest wealth quartile. So if you're rich, you place lesser confidence in these institutions. If you are not so rich, or probably you're lying in the poorest quartile of wealth, then you place a very high confidence in these institutions. Similarly, membership of caste and religious organizations are also proving out to be an important factor that improves your confidence in these institutions. This is more of a network effect that this variable captures, your social network effect per se. I'm not sure if you have read about it, but of late there has been huge literature that revolves around the importance of social networks and getting jobs and stuff. So this variable in a way captures your social network effect. Then there's a political network variable that I'm sorry, that says that if you know the pradhan well, or if you know the MLA well, or someone from the panchayat, and like that. So this variable is also proving to be important for panchayat. So if I have a political network, that means if I know someone from panchayat, then I will place more confidence in panchayats. However, it is not so important for my confidence in state governments. Then pradhan level characteristics are also extremely important, particularly if the pradhan is from the same caste or religion category. Then it improves your confidence in panchayat. Also, if pradhan stays in the same village as does the household, then you place more faith in that panchayat. Right? So physical proximity with the place of residence of pradhan also matters significantly and positively for your confidence in panchayats. However, these variables are not really important for your state level confidence. So all the MLA level characteristics have no really important role to play in determining my confidence in state government. So that just brings me to the conclusion, and which is that on the assumption that performance is a surrogate to confidence, performance of local government not only improves my confidence in itself but also in state government. Further, why does confidence matter? It matters because more confidence provides greater policy authorities scope to innovate and take risk, while lack of it threatens the authority and stability of governments. So hence, by this study highlights an important thing. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'm more than willing to answer.
I want to know whether
People at the back can't hear what you're asking, so you have to use the mic.
how does gender as a control variable, is related to the level of confidence in the child of state government? Like, is it included in the equation or not?
Well, it hasn't been. So the way in which I can control for gender is by looking at the fact who heads the household, right? So in the sample I had, there was a very few percentage of households who were headed by women. So there wasn't many variation in my sample. Hence, controlling for it was not really proving any good to me. So I could not control for it. However, I believe that because women have different priorities when it comes to men. So while women are more concerned about having access to safe drinking water and easier access to this safe drinking water, there could be differences in which in the perception of women vis-a-vis men. However, I'm not able to capture it for my particular case.
Hello. Yeah, so you mentioned a number of factors which basically affect the confidence of the public in the panchayat and the state government. But like I'm not sure, but you didn't mention education in it. So like a large population, like a large amount of population in rural sector at least is uneducated or are not literate enough. Don't you think that also will affect the choice in their confidence, because it is a general thing that people who don't, are not educated enough tend to believe in government more compared to people like more easily than people who are actually educated.
So your question is, I should have been controlling it?
Yeah, have you?
Yeah, so I have control for it. Besides, if you would look at the wealth quartiles, so if I believe that my wealth mimics my educational attainments, which I can probably assume it to be true because higher wealth might be associated with better educational outcomes in the household, then I also see that in higher wealth quartiles, my confidence in institutions is not that great. While in lower wealth quartiles, they are pretty confident about these institutions. So what you're saying is true, right?
But don't you think it could be more because the lower wealth quartile people, they expect less from the government, and the wealthier people, they expect more from the government?
Um, so
The
like, I mean,
expectations are simpler in one side,
mm-hmm.
and it's just more complex when it comes to wealthy people because they can support themselves on a basic need.
Right. So that's one argument. Besides, I also believe that not so wealthy people, uh, they are more interested in um, tangible outcomes like getting, so basic, like what you said, they are more interested in just getting probably good drinking water, the fact that they have proper roads to travel, or the fact that they are being given some kind of farm subsidy because my area of study is rural. So yes, that can be an important factor in itself. But we normally in economic literature, it is believed that wealth and education sort of go in tandem. However, I have also controlled for education level in the households. Excuse me.
Yeah. What I perceive from here that, confidence in the government institution and the representative of that government might be different, because if you do survey for the confidence of some representative of the state government or at the local level, it's a very volatile thing. It depends on lots of factors. Even some of the governments are not delivering things because still they might have, confidence in that primarily because of many other reasons. And it also, there's a lots of swing in those beliefs. So I think, is there any, method in your analysis that you would put some kind of difference between the, beliefs or trust in the institution itself? Also, for example, panchayat institutions, okay. Of course, what she was talking about, the people who are at the margin, their livelihood is primarily dependent on panchayats and all, because they get PDS, MNRG and all, and upper quartile people, they are hardly dependent on, their livelihood for. So of course, they always demand different things, they expect different things from the local government. Similar things happens from the state government as well. So is there anything which you can, differentiate between the trust in the institutions as, institutions and trust, on the representative of those institutions, because both are different things, and you cannot come to the conclusion on the basis of somebody who is representing that institutions is.
So
I'm getting your
true.
point, so-
Yeah, I get your point. So that's true what you're saying. So let me answer it by institution, right? So at the local level, we have panchayats, and panchayats are primarily governed by one person. We have pradhan, and then there are up-pradhans and other members of panchayat. But the main decision-making power lies with your pradhan, and that's the person who's responsible. So there, my institution of panchayat almost overlaps with the candidate, almost overlaps, right? So if I am confident about pradhan, I am confident about that panchayat. But what you're saying is actually holding true when I'm looking at the state government. So my MLA is not really my CM, right? So the fact that I have confidence in state government means I have my confidence in the chief minister and the policies that person is enacting, right? But that could also be true that I'm probably not so confident about the MLA of my particular constituency. So that's true. So there exist differences here. However, I have tried my bit to be able to, so to say, control for these things by controlling in certain MLA level factors. So if my confidence is purely driven in my state government, is purely driven by some kind of caste alignment or some kind of alignment, religious alignment or some communal alignment with the MLA in question, right, then that is something I have tried to control for, given the limitations of my data. And as my data suggests, they are not important for my confidence in state government. So if data is actually speaking the truth behind what is happening, so it is legit to believe that when the public is evaluating their confidence in state government, they are actually evaluating just the confidence in state government and not really beholding your MLA or any such candidate tie is important. Yeah, that's all. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much for your time and patience.